The signal came through as a scream of static and desperation, cutting through the peaceful hum of station harmony like a knife through silk. Communications Officer Draywin felt his gelatinous body ripple with alarm. In his 40 years of service, he had received thousands of distress calls. But something about this one made his entire being shudder. The voice on the other end was not just afraid. It was the voice of someone who had already accepted death. Please, anyone, we're the colony ship New Dawn. 12,000 Tailshire refugees. We are under attack. Life support failing. Children aboard. Please, someone answer. Draywin immediately routed the signal to Administrator Pillix, who stood in the central command chamber with her compound eyes scanning multiple data streams. The Venery insectoid clicked her mandibles together as she listened to the recording. Location, she asked, her voice sharp. The Hollow Reach, Administrator. The room fell silent. Every officer present knew what those words meant. The Hollow Reach was a cursed region of space, filled with cosmic storms and gravitational anomalies that swallowed ships whole. It was also the hunting ground of reavers, the lawless scavengers who preyed on anyone desperate enough to pass through. Time to reach them with standard vessels. Pillix asked, 3 weeks at maximum speed. But Administrator, by our calculations, they have perhaps 40 hours of life support remaining. Pillix closed her eyes. 12,000 souls. Children among them. Tailshire refugees who had already lost their homeworld to a dying sun, now about to lose their lives to monsters who saw them as cargo to be sold. Counselor Hemrath, an elderly avian Civian with faded blue feathers, stepped forward. We could dispatch military escorts with the relief convoy. Perhaps if they pushed their engines beyond safe limits, they would still arrive 2 weeks too late, Pillix interrupted. And the military will not approve an escort mission into the Hollow Reach. Not for refugees. Not for anyone. Then what do you suggest? We simply let them die. Pillix turned to face the massive display screen showing the galaxy map. Her gaze settled on a small blue planet in a distant arm of the spiral. There is one option, she said slowly. Earth. The reaction was immediate. Officers exchanged horrified glances. Hemrath's feathers puffed up in agitation. The Deathworlders? Have you lost your mind, Administrator? They have vessels capable of reaching the Hollow Reach in time. And what then? You would invite those predators into a humanitarian crisis? Humans do not understand subtlety. They do not understand restraint. They will turn a rescue mission into a bloodbath. Pillix turned to face the counselor, her compound eyes reflecting the cold light of distant stars. Counselor, do you know what the humans did after the Kepler massacre? When their relief convoy was destroyed because military escort was delayed. Hemrath said nothing. They stopped asking for escort. They stopped separating their rescue ships from their warships. Pillix let the words hang in the air. When humans come to save you, Counselor, they bring everything. Bandages and bullets. Doctors and soldiers. They arrive prepared to heal you or kill anyone trying to stop them. That is precisely what concerns me. And it is precisely why those 12,000 refugees might survive. Pillix gestured to Draywin. Forward the distress signal to Earth's orbital command. Priority 1. Administrator, I must formally protest this decision, Hemrath said. The Galactic Council has always maintained a strict separation between humanitarian and military operations. What you are proposing violates every protocol we have established. The Galactic Council is not floating in a broken ship with 12,000 terrified people watching their air run out. Pillix moved toward the door. Protocols do not breathe, Counselor. Children do. As she left the chamber, Draywin completed the transmission to Earth. The response came faster than anyone expected, just 17 minutes later. This is Earth Orbital Command acknowledging distress signal relay. Vessel persistent memory is being deployed to the Hollow Reach. Estimated arrival, 41 hours. Message to refugees, hold on. We are coming. Hemrath read the message 3 times. His feathers slowly flattened against his body. 41 hours, he whispered. That is impossible. The journey would kill any crew attempting such speed through the storm barriers. Pillix had paused at the doorway. That is what we always say about humans, counselor. And yet they keep doing impossible things. What exactly are they sending? A battle fleet? One ship? Just one? One ship against Reavers? Against the Hollow Reach itself? That is suicide, not rescue. Pillix allowed herself a small sound that might have been a laugh. You misunderstand, counselor. I did not say it was a small ship, and I did not say the humans aboard it were sane. She resumed walking. I merely said they were coming. I suggest you pray for the refugees, and perhaps pray for the Reavers as well. They have no idea what they have brought upon themselves. In the command chamber, officers returned to their duties in uncomfortable silence. The message to Earth had been sent. The Deathworlders were responding. Somewhere in the Hollow Reach, 12,000 refugees huddled in the dark, watching their oxygen levels drop and their hope fade. They did not know that hope was already racing toward them at speeds that would terrify any sane pilot. They did not know that the monsters circling their ship had just become prey. Help was coming. But it was not the kind of help the galaxy expected. It was something far more dangerous. 17 minutes after Earth received the distress signal, the persistent memory was already burning through the void at speeds that would make other species weep with terror. Captain Nadia Okonkwo stood in the medical bay, not the bridge, reviewing the supply manifest on her tablet. Around her, automated systems loaded crates of emergency supplies into secure compartments. Bandages, burn treatments, nutrient solutions designed for tailshore biology, trauma kits for children. And in the armory 3 decks below, her crew was loading something else entirely. Captain, we have cleared the orbital defense perimeter. Entering acceleration phase 2. The voice belonged to Kai, the ship's artificial intelligence. Its tone was calm and professional, completely unbothered by the fact that the ship was about to do something most species considered impossible. Time to the storm barrier? Nadia asked. 14 hours at current speed. Recommend you inform the crew to secure for compressed warp entry. Nadia smiled grimly. Compressed warp was a navigation method that other species refused to use. The math was simple enough. By compressing space in front of a ship while expanding it behind, vessels could achieve incredible speeds. The problem was that any small error in calculation would scatter the ship across several light years as subatomic dust. Humans did not consider this a reason to avoid the method. They considered it a reason to get very good at math. Chief Engineer Yusuf found her in the corridor outside medical. He was a giant of man, nearly 2 meters tall with hands that could crush metal but preferred to build things. He fell in a step beside her as she walked toward the bridge. Cargo is secure. Medical supplies are locked down. Weapons systems are charged and ready. How is the crew? Eager. You know how they get when children are involved. Nadia knew. Every human knew. There was something wired deep into their species, something that made them especially dangerous when the innocent were threatened. Biologists had theories about pack bonding and protective instincts evolved on a brutal planet. Philosophers talked about empathy and moral duty. Nadia just knew that her crew would fly through a burning star if there were children on the other side who needed help. They reached the bridge, where Dr. Amara Diallo was already studying medical files on the tailshore species. She looked up as Nadia entered. Their respiratory system is sensitive to carbon dioxide. If the New Dawn's air scrubbers are failing, the children will be affected first. We need to reach them within 48 hours, or we will be recovering bodies, not survivors. We will reach them in 41. That requires going through the storm barrier at full speed. Yes. Amara nodded slowly. She had served with Nadia for 6 years. She knew better than to argue. Nadia took her seat in the command chair and looked around the bridge. Her crew moved with practiced efficiency, each person exactly where they needed to be. These were not soldiers, not really. They were rescue specialists, emergency responders, people who had trained their entire careers to save lives. The fact that their ship carried enough weapons to level a small moon was just a practical consideration. Kai, show me the mission file. The main screen flickered to life, displaying the colony ship New Dawn. It was an old vessel, designed for slow travel between stars. 12,000 tailshore refugees filled its compartments, families who had fled their dying homeworld with nothing but hope and each other. The Hope was now surrounded by Reaver ships. 6 hostile vessels confirmed, Kai reported. Vorkith configuration. These are slavers, Captain. They are not here to rob the refugees. They are here to take them. Correct. Vorkith slavers prefer live cargo. They will keep the refugees alive, but terrified. Standard psychological conditioning to break resistance before sale. Nadia's jaw tightened. She had seen what Vorkith slavers did to their victims. The memory still gave her nightmares. What is their combat capability? Each vessel carries approximately 40 armed personnel. Light shielding, moderate weapons. They rely on numbers and intimidation rather than direct confrontation. They have likely never encountered determined resistance. They are about to. Yusuf leaned against the navigation console. Captain, should we request backup? The coalition might send military support. Military support is 3 weeks away. Those refugees do not have 3 weeks. So we go alone. 1 ship against 6. Nadia smiled, but there was no warmth in it. 1 ship against 6 slavers who have never fought humans. Who have never seen what we do when children are in danger. Who think that rescue ships are soft targets. She stood and moved toward the main viewport. Contact the New Dawn. Let them know help is coming. And contact the Reavers. The Reavers, Captain. Yes. Give them 1 warning. Tell them to leave. Tell them what happens if they stay. Nadia watched the stars blur past as the ship accelerated beyond safe limits. I want them to know exactly who is coming. I want them to have the chance to run. It makes what follows easier to justify. And if they do not run, Nadia turned back to face her crew. In her eyes was something ancient and dangerous. The inheritance of a species that had clawed its way to the top of a brutal food chain through pure stubborn aggression. Then we stop being a rescue ship, and we start being the reason the galaxy fears Deathworlders. The persistent memory plunged deeper into the void, racing toward the hollow reach and the desperate souls waiting there. Behind them, Earth grew small. Ahead of them, monsters waited. They had no idea what was coming. The lights had stopped flickering an hour ago. Now they simply stayed dim, casting long shadows through the corridors of the New Dawn where 12,000 souls waited to die. Elder Sorvith moved through the darkness with the slow dignity of a being who had seen too much loss to be hurried by more. His pale blue skin had faded to gray over his long life, and his forearms trembled with age as he walked. But his eyes remained sharp, and his mind remained cleared. He wished, sometimes, that his mind would cloud. Then perhaps he would not have to make these decisions. Elder, Section 7 is sealed. 43 people relocated to the main cargo hold. The report came from Mareth, a young engineer whose technical skills had kept them alive this long. Her hands were burned from electrical work, her eyes hollow from exhaustion, but she refused to rest. Casualties? Sorvith asked. 2. An elderly couple. They refused to leave their quarters. The breach took them before we could seal the corridor. Sorvith closed his eyes. 2 more names to remember. 2 more faces that would haunt him if he survived this, that he would not survive this. He had known that from the moment the Reavers appeared on their sensors. How much time do we have? Mareth checked her damage tablet. Air scrubbers are at 12% efficiency. At current population density, we have approximately 36 hours before carbon dioxide levels become fatal. The children will be affected first. The children, 3,000 of them, gathered in the main cargo hold under the care of frightened adults who pretended to be calm. Sorvith had visited them an hour ago. Some were crying. Some were too scared to cry. The youngest ones did not understand what was happening, only that their parents were afraid. And the Reavers, still circling. They have not attempted another attack since they crippled our engines. I believe they are waiting for us to weaken further. They want us alive. Yes, Elder. They are Vorkith. Slavers. They will board when we are too weak to resist. Sorvith had heard stories about Vorkith slavers, what they did to their captives, how they broke spirits before selling bodies. He thought about the children in the cargo hold and felt something cold settle in his chest. Can we send another distress signal? They are jamming our communications. Nothing gets through. The signal we sent before they arrived is our only hope. But Mareth trailed off. But what? Elder, I accessed the galactic positioning data before communications went down. We are in the Hollow Reach. The nearest coalition outpost is 3 weeks away. No one can reach us in time. Sorvith absorbed this information in silence. 3 weeks. They had 36 hours. A sound echoed through the corridors, metal groaning as the damaged ship shifted. Somewhere, another system was failing. Somewhere, more people were huddling in the dark, wondering if the next breath would be their last. There is one option, Sorvith said slowly. Surrender. Mireth stared at him. Elder, the Vorkith will, I know what they will do, but they will keep us alive. Alive is better than dead. Alive means hope, even if that hope is small. You would hand our people to slavers. I would not hand our children to the void. Sorvith felt the weight of every year he had lived pressing down on him. Death is final, child. Slavery is not. Where there is life, there is the chance of rescue, of escape, of rebellion. He placed a trembling hand on her shoulder. I do not make this choice lightly, but I make it knowing that our children deserve the chance to live, even if that life is hard. Mareth looked away, tears forming in her eyes. She wanted to argue. She wanted to fight. But she was so tired, and the elder was so certain, and there were no other options. Then her tablet beeped. She looked down at it, confusion spreading across her features. Elder, our sensors are detecting something. Another Reaver ship? No, something else. Coming through the storm barrier. She checked the readings again, certain she had made a mistake. Elder, this is impossible. Nothing moves that fast. The gravitational forces would tear any ship apart. Yet something is there. Yes, it is heading directly for us. The Reavers have detected it too. They have stopped circling. Mareth looked up, hope and fear fighting in her expression. They are afraid, Elder. The Reavers are afraid. Sorvith moved to the observation port, his old body suddenly feeling lighter. Through the damaged glass, he could see the distant lights of the Reaver ships. They had been prowling around the new dawn like predators waiting for prey to weaken. Now, they were pulling back, regrouping. Their formation had changed from hunting to defense. What could possibly frighten Vorkith slavers? Sorvith murmured. The answer came moments later as a ship burst through the cosmic storms like a creature emerging from nightmare waters. It was scarred and angular, built for violence, but painted with medical insignias. It moved with aggressive grace, burning through space as if the universe itself would not dare slow it down. The communication system crackled with static. Then a voice came through, clear and strong despite the jamming that should have been impossible to penetrate. Colony ship New Dawn. This is Earth vessel persistent memory. We received your distress signal. We are here to help. Mireth gasped. Deathworlders. They sent Deathworlders. Elder Sorvith watched the impossible ship approach, watched the Reaver formation scramble in confusion, and for the first time in days, he allowed himself to feel something other than despair. No, he said quietly. They sent hope. But hope, he was about to learn, could be a very dangerous thing. Commander Brock had been a slaver for 30 years. He had hunted prey across 100 systems. He had never lost a catch that he was not about to start now. One ship, he growled, studying the sensors aboard his command vessel. They send one ship against my fleet. His lieutenant, Sketh, did not share his confidence. The younger Vorkith had pulled up everything their database contained about Earth vessels, and what he found made his scales itch with unease. Commander, this ship is registered as a combat rescue vessel. It is crewed by Deathworlders. I know what Deathworlders are. Overgrown apes from a heavy gravity world. They bleed like everyone else. They also fight like no one else. Commander, perhaps we should withdraw. The cargo is not worth. 12,000 living bodies are worth more than your opinion. Brock turned from the sensors. Signal the fleet. Attack formation. We destroy the intruder and then collect our merchandise. Sketh wanted to argue, but he valued his life. He transmitted the orders and watched the Reaver ships move into position around the approaching human vessel. The persistent memory came to a stop between the Reaver fleet and the crippled colony ship. For a moment, nothing happened. The void hung silent and still, two forces measuring each other across the darkness. Then Captain Nadia Okonkwo broadcast on all frequencies. This is Earth vessel persistent memory to unidentified hostile ships. The refugees aboard the New Dawn are now under human protection. You have one opportunity to withdraw. Take it. Leave now, and we will not pursue. Brock laughed, a harsh barking sound that echoed through his bridge. Listen to them, giving us orders. One ship giving orders to 6. He grabbed the communication controls. Human vessel, you are outnumbered and outgunned. Surrender your ship, and we will let your crew live. Refuse, and we will destroy you. Then take the refugees anyway. The response came immediately, calm and cold. You were warned. The battle began. Brock had expected the human ship to run, to dodge, to try to escape into the cosmic storms where his fleet could not follow. That was what sensible prey did when faced with superior numbers. The persistent memory did not end IT charged. The human vessel accelerated directly toward the closest Reaver ship, weapons blazing with a fury that seemed almost personal. Brock watched in disbelief as his lead vessel's shields collapsed under the assault. The Reaver ship tried to maneuver away, but the human pilot anticipated every move, staying locked on target with predatory precision. The first Reaver ship exploded in a bloom of fire and debris. What are they doing? Brock snarled. That is not how you fight a fleet action. They should be trying to stay at range, picking us apart, not charging into close combat. Commander, I do not believe they care about standard tactics. Sketh was watching the battle with growing horror. They're fighting like they want to die. Then let us grant their wish. All ships converge on the human vessel. Destroy it. The remaining 5 Reaver ships closed in, pouring fire at the persistent memory. The human ship took hits, its shields flashing and flickering under the assault. Any sane captain would have retreated. Instead, the human ship dove into the cosmic storm. They have lost their minds, Brock whispered. But as he watched, the human vessel used the storm itself as a weapon. It led 2 pursuing Reaver ships into a gravitational eddy, a swirling pocket of distorted space that should have been death for any vessel. The human ship skimmed the edge of destruction, riding the boundary with impossible skill. The Reaver ships were not so fortunate. One was torn apart by tidal forces. The other limped out with half its systems dead. Easy prey for the circling human predator. 3 ships destroyed. 3 remaining. Commander Brock. The human captain's voice came through again, still maddeningly calm. You have lost half your fleet. The refugees are still under our protection. This is your second chance to withdraw. There will not be a third. Brock's claws dug into his command chair. He had 30 years of success behind him. He had a reputation to maintain. He could not flee from a single ship crewed by primitive apes. All remaining ships prepare for coordinated assault. We hit them together. Their shields cannot hold against all of us at once. Sketh stepped closer, lowering his voice. Commander, perhaps we should consider. I am done considering. Brock spun to face his lieutenant, rage burning in his eyes. We attack. We destroy. We take what is ours. The 3 remaining Reaver ships formed up and charged as one. This time, the persistent memory did not dodge. It positioned itself directly between the attackers and the New Dawn, absorbing fire that should have been targeting the refugee ship. The human vessel's shields failed. Armor plating tore away. Atmosphere vented from a dozen breaches, but it did not move. It held the line. Now, Brock screamed. Full assault. Finish them. The Reavers poured everything they had at the wounded human ship, and Brock finally understood his mistake. He had thought the humans were protecting the refugees from him. He was wrong. They had been giving him a chance to run before they stopped holding back. The persistent memory erupted with fire. Hidden weapons emerged from damaged hull sections. Systems that had seemed destroyed roared back to life. The humans had not been losing. They had been waiting. Now there was no more mercy to give. The docking clamps engaged with a sound like thunder rolling through the New Dawn's damaged hull. Emergency seals hissed as airlocks connected, bridging the gap between the crippled refugee ship and the scarred human vessel, still trading fire with the remaining Reavers. Elder Sorvith watched from the main cargo hold as the airlock door began to cycle. Around him, 12,000 of his people held their breath. The children had stopped crying. The adults had stopped praying. Everyone simply stared at the door, waiting to see what Deathworlders looked like up close. The door opened, and monsters stepped through. That was Sorvith's first thought. The humans were encased in heavy armor that made them look like creatures from nightmare stories. They moved with predatory grace, their helmets hiding their faces, their weapons held ready. Then the leader stopped, surveyed the crowd of terrified refugees, and did something unexpected. She holstered her weapon. "I am Sergeant Adora," she announced, her voice amplified through her helmet speakers. "We are the rescue team from Earth Vessel Persistent Memory. We are here to help you. Please remain calm and follow our instructions." Behind her, 5 more humans spread out, but not in an attack formation. They carried medical equipment and emergency supplies. One immediately moved to a wounded tailshire nearby, kneeling down to examine the injury. "I need translation assistance," the medic called out. "Does anyone speak standard? I need to explain the treatment I am about to administer." Mareth pushed forward through the crowd, still clutching her damaged tablet. "I speak standard. I can translate." "Good. Tell them this medicine will sting, but it will prevent infection. Tell them they're going to be fine." Sorvith watched in stunned silence as the humans worked. They were fast and efficient, but also surprisingly gentle. One soldier was sealing a hull breach with equipment that seemed designed for exactly this purpose. Another was distributing emergency air filters to the refugees, showing them how to use the devices properly. Elder Sorvith, Sergeant Adora, approached him, her helmet retracting to reveal a human face. Her skin was dark, her eyes were kind, and a long scar ran down one cheek. "We have received communication from your engineer about the critical systems failing. My team will restore life support within the hour." How are you doing this?" Sorvith found his voice. "You are still fighting the Reavers. Your own ship is damaged. Yet you board us to provide a standard procedure for hot extraction scenarios." Adora smiled, though it did not quite reach her eyes. "Our captain believes that rescue is not complete until the rescued are safe. Fighting happens around that priority, not instead of it." An explosion vibrated through both ships. The battle outside continued, but the human soldiers barely reacted. They simply kept working, kept helping, kept treating the wounded and calming the frightened. A small hand tugged at Adora's armored leg. She looked down to find a tailshire child, no more than 5 years old, staring up at her with enormous eyes. The child's parents were nowhere in sight, probably lost in the chaos of the attack. Adora knelt down immediately, bringing herself to the child's level. She removed her armored gloves, revealing hands that were calloused but careful. "Hello, little one," she said softly. "Are you lost?" The child did not understand the words, but it understood the tone. Slowly, hesitantly, it reached out and grabbed one of Adora's fingers. "You are safe now," Adora continued, her voice gentle. "We are going to protect you. Nothing is going to hurt you while we are here." Sorvith watched this interaction and felt something shift in his understanding. He had heard the stories about Deathworlders, about their violence, their aggression, their terrifying home planet that killed most species within days. He had expected monsters. What he found are guardians. That Yusuf's voice crackled through the communication system. "Sergeant, Captain Okonkwo reports 2 remaining hostile vessels. Reaver command ship is attempting to flee. Captain is in pursuit." "Understood. What is the status of our ship?" "Multiple hull breaches, shield generators offline, port weapons array destroyed. We have taken significant damage. But the New Dawn, not a single additional hit since we arrived. Captain has kept herself between the Reavers and the refugees throughout the engagement." Sorvith processed this information slowly. The human ship had deliberately absorbed punishment that could have been avoided. They had sacrificed their own vessel to protect strangers. "Why?" he asked Adora. "Why would you risk so much for people you have never met?" The sergeant stood, still holding the tailshire child's hand gently. "Because someone should, Elder. Because no one should die waiting for help to arrive. Because—" She paused, searching for words. "Because we are human. This is what we do. Dr. Diallo's voice came through the communication channel. Sergeant, I have completed triage of critical patients. 47 require immediate surgery. I am beginning procedures aboard the persistent memory. The ship is under fire, and you are performing surgery? I have done more with less, Sergeant. These people need help now, not after the battle ends. Sorvith shook his head slowly. You are all insane. Adora laughed, and this time it was genuine. Probably elder, but we are your kind of insane. She squeezed the child's hand reassuringly. Now, let's get your people somewhere safer. The cargo hold is too exposed. We will move everyone to the inner compartments. As the humans began organizing the evacuation, Sorvith looked toward the observation port where distant flashes marked the ongoing battle. The persistent memory, battered and broken, was still fighting, still protecting. He had asked the universe for help. The universe had sent Deathworlders. He was beginning to understand why the galaxy feared them, and why, perhaps, that fear was misplaced. The last Reaver ship tried to run. Commander Brock, who had boasted of 30 years without losing prey, now fled through the cosmic storms with a broken fleet and shattered pride. He did not get far. Captain Nadia Okonkwo pursued him until coalition reinforcements finally arrived, 3 military vessels that had pushed their engines beyond safe limits after receiving word of the situation. They captured Brock's ship intact. The slaver would face justice for his crimes. Nadia did not stay to watch the arrest. She had more important matters to attend to. The persistent memory drifted alongside the New Dawn, both ships scarred and bleeding atmosphere from a dozen wounds. Emergency repair teams from both vessels worked side by side, human and Tailshire learning to trust each other through shared labor to in the New Dawn's medical bay. Dr. Diallo finished her 47th surgery. She had not slept in 2 days. Her hands were steady anyway, because they had to be. Final count, she reported to Nadia over the communication channel. 0 refugee casualties since our arrival. All 12,000 souls accounted for and stable. Nadia leaned back in her command chair and allowed herself to breathe. Around her, her crew moved slowly, exhaustion finally catching up with them now that the danger had passed. Yusuf was asleep at his engineering station, slumped over his console with a wrench still in his hand. Captain, Kai's voice was soft. You have a visitor at the airlock. Elder Sorvith stood at the connection point between the 2 ships, his ancient body held upright by determination alone. Nadia went to meet him, moving carefully through corridors that were no longer entirely stable. They faced each other across the threshold, 2 leaders who had spent the last 2 days fighting to protect others. You are injured, Sorvith observed, noting the bandages visible beneath Nadia's uniform. Minor damage. Your people needed the medical resources more. You refused treatment until every Tailshire was seen first. Dr. Diallo told me. Nadia shrugged. Standard procedure. No, Captain. It is not. Sorvith stepped closer, his 4 arms clasped together in what Nadia recognized as a Tailshire gesture of respect. I must ask you something. A question that has troubled me since your ship arrived. Ask. Why? Why would humans travel across the galaxy, through cosmic storms that should have killed you, to save people you have never met? You risked everything. Your ship, your crew, your own life. For strangers. Nadia considered the question carefully. She had been asked this before by other species who could not understand human behavior. She had given many answers over the years. Today, exhausted and hurting and looking at an old alien who had nearly lost everything, she gave the simplest one. Because someone should. Because no one should die waiting for help to arrive. She paused. Because when we were young as a species, no one came to save us. We had to save ourselves or die. Now that we are among the stars, we choose to be the help we never had. Sorvith was silent for a long moment. Then he bowed his head. I was prepared to surrender my people to slavers. I had given up hope. And then you came, burning through impossible storms, fighting impossible odds, giving everything you had for people who could offer you nothing in return. His voice trembled. How do I thank you for that? What words exist for such a debt? No debt, Nadia said firmly. That is not how we do things. You do not owe us. Your people do not owe us. If you want to repay this, then someday, when someone else needs help, you help them. Pass it forward. That is enough. 3 weeks later, the convoy reached Station Harmony. Coalition officials swarmed the New Dawn, processing refugees and documenting the incident. Reporters from a dozen species demanded interviews. Politicians made speeches about the importance of galactic cooperation. Administrator Pillix watched the chaos from her office window. Counselor Hemrath stood beside her, his feathers flat against his body in subdued contemplation. I must admit, Hemrath said slowly, I was wrong about the Deathworlders. You thought they would turn a rescue into a bloodbath. I thought they were dangerous. They're dangerous. Pillix turned to face him. They're the most dangerous beings in the galaxy. But I understand now what we fail to see. Being dangerous does not make something a danger. The humans use their violence to protect. Their aggression serves compassion. They're not predators. They're guardians. What do they send exactly? One ship, one crew. They sent themselves, counselor. That is what humans send when they hear a cry for help. Not resources, not equipment. Themselves. Their bodies between harm and harmed. Their lives traded for lives they have never known. Pillix looked back toward the window, where the battered persistent memory was limping into dry dock for repairs. The galaxy misunderstands them because we cannot comprehend that level of commitment to strangers. In the repair bay, engineers were documenting the damage to the human ship. Someone had painted new words beneath the vessel's name point 12, 000 souls delivered. Captain Nadia Okonkwo watched the work from a medical shuttle, her arm in a sling, her body finally accepting rest. Sergeant Adora sat beside her, the tail-shirt child asleep in her lap. The child's parents had been found alive, but the little one had refused to leave Adora's side. Another mission complete, Adora said quietly. Think they will give us time to recover before the next one? Nadia smiled tiredly. There's always another SOS. There are always more people who need help. And we will always answer. We will always answer. Outside the viewport, stars burned against the endless dark. Somewhere out there, someone was in trouble. Someone was calling for help. Someone was losing hope. And somewhere on Earth, another ship was being prepared, because that is what humans do. When the universe screams for help, Deathworlders answer. Not with pity. Not with hesitation. Not with carefully calculated risk assessment. With everything they have. With themselves. That is what the Tailshire would tell their children. That is what the galaxy would eventually learn. When you call for Deathworlders, they do not send aid. They send something far more dangerous. They send hope. And hope, in human hands, is the most powerful force in the universe, the end.